Hey everyone, my name is Sara Harberson. I'm America's college counselor. It's so good to see you all. I want to make sure that we are live, that we are streaming live. Looks like we are. Now, there we go. Please make sure you let me know if you can hear and see me okay. Obviously, I want to make sure that if you have questions that you're able to ask them and I'm able to answer them. We are streaming live on both of my Facebook pages for Sara Harberson and also Admissions Revolution. And I save all of my Facebook Lives. I've been doing it for a really long time. So all of my Facebook Lives have been saved. You can look at my Facebook pages for that, and also saraharberson.com. You can find that out. If you are new to me and my website and my Facebook Lives and Instagram Lives, just know that I have worked in college admissions and college counseling for my entire professional career. And I've worked on the college side and also the high school side. But at this point, I still do a lot of public things and free things for any family who's going through the process. I also have a subscription-based program called Application Nation. And we have different groups depending on what year of high school your child is in. So for example, we are about to launch Application Nation class of 2023. Those are our current high school juniors who are going to be graduating from high school in 2023. If you want to be a part of Application Nation class of 2023, you can join the wait list. And we'll post a link to that, and you get 20% off your first month's membership if you sign up for the waitlist now. We're gonna be launching the group in January, and we've had hugely successful Application Nation groups over the last couple of years. If you're interested in getting a feel for what colleges Application Nation students apply to and get admitted to, follow me on Instagram at Sara Harberson. I post all of our Application Nation acceptances, and you will find every single type of college where our students get accepted to. So that means that every type of college-bound student and family is welcome and comfortable and gets a lot out of Application Nation. So check it out. So in the meantime, we've got a lot going on in college admissions as always. The sophomores and juniors, or possibly even the freshmen that took the PSATs in October, found out their scores this week. We also have a lot of early decision and early action programs about to release decisions or have already released their early decisions. We also have regular decision deadlines coming up, so I'm sure there is a lot on your mind. So we're gonna get right to it and see what questions you have for me. First question, is it less impressive to finish up a passion project in 9th grade? Should the project be stretched over 2 years? Is it less impressive to hold leadership positions in 9th grade? Okay, so let's take apart this question. We have a passion project term in there, and we also have leadership in there. So passion project is a term that a lot of private college counselors use. Most of the time they have no college admissions experience because a passion project feels very forced at times. If you read my book SOUNDBITE, you know that I approach that a lot differently. I call it a homegrown project because it's grown out of a student's own interest and that they can't imagine not pursuing this on their own. I would say that homegrown projects can be done over a summertime, over a specific grade in high school, but the more recent and the longer that project, the more impact the student can have and the more relevance it will have. So you will find that in the application, in any college application, whether you're looking at Common App, Coalition App, or an institutional specific application, you have room to list all of your extracurricular activities. This includes clubs and sports and the arts and jobs and homegrown projects that students do or community service or family responsibilities. you will find, or if you follow my advice, and there's a great blog that I wrote several years ago on ordering the activities on your list, you will find that I really do encourage students to list the things that are more impactful, more meaningful, and opportunities where they possibly have leadership or have done something for possibly all 4 years of high school and a significant number of hours each week. You want to put those activities towards the top of the list. Something that a student does at the end of 9th grade or in 9th grade, it's important to list if you have room for it. However, a lot of times the things that you do 10th, 11th, and 12th grade are going to supersede that, are going to matter more, and are going to be higher up on your list. In terms of leadership, you can get leadership, traditional leadership with school clubs or local organizations, or if you are on a varsity team, you can have a leadership position. Again, your leadership positions that are closer to when you apply are usually bigger leadership roles as well. And so again, more recent things are probably going to be listed higher up on your activities list than things that you did in 9th grade or achieved in 9th grade. Next question. Should we freak out and add a bunch of schools at the last minute? What a great question. So I just did an Application Nation, well, it's 7 p.m. Eastern time. I did a Zoom call for Application Nation class of 2022. And I said, I know you guys are stressed, and I know it's so easy to start adding on more colleges to your list because there's some early decision 2 deadlines coming up or regular decision deadlines. I don't recommend adding more colleges on. However, you should look at your college list, and if necessary, you should replace some colleges with other colleges that are a better fit for you at this point in senior year, and also that are realistic. So if your list for regular decision only includes reach colleges, you want to make sure that you even that out. And so you don't necessarily have to add more colleges, but you might want to replace some of those reach colleges with more target and likely colleges. I'm a big fan also of rolling admissions programs. I encourage every single student I work with in Application Nation to have at least one rolling admissions school. Rolling admissions programs basically allow the student to apply at any point, really sometimes as early as the end of the summer before senior year, to sometimes until that college has reached their enrollment goals for the year. And that could be spring, it could even be summer. But a student has a much better chance of getting into a rolling admissions program if they apply sooner in senior year. So if you know some rolling admissions programs out there, and I have a blog on that as well to check it out, make sure to submit those applications, I would say now. And usually those applications, everyone, they're really straightforward. Sometimes you don't even need an essay. And so getting those applications for rolling admissions programs out the door, you're going to be able to hopefully get some acceptances back early on, and you won't be as freaked out, and you'll feel some peace of mind about your options in this process. All right, next question. Does the SAT score help more with getting scholarships in college, and GPA score helps more with admissions? It's going to depend on the colleges that you apply to. So what I often say is if a student is applying to highly selective colleges, you need the objective criteria just to be in the mix, just to be competitive. So that means your curriculum needs to be extremely strong, your grades need to be extremely strong, and frankly, if you're reporting test scores, those need to be extremely strong. High test scores aren't going to get a student admitted to a highly selective college, but they are going to keep you competitive. But for a college that is a very selective college or a selective college where the acceptance rate is going to be higher than a highly selective college, those test scores can absolutely not only help you in the admissions process, but possibly even help you get a merit scholarship. For those of you who don't have high test scores, just keep in mind that most of these colleges in the US are test optional at this point. And this past year, when most colleges did go test optional due to the pandemic, I saw just as many students getting admitted and getting merit scholarships who didn't submit test scores with their applications than those who did. All right, next question. Oh, hi. Hey, Sarah. Would you recommend taking a Russian language proficiency exam to prove bilingual students' level of fluency? Is it a distraction for a junior at this point in their college application process? Do colleges even pay attention to tests like NELL, prototype AP Russian test? Thank you. Okay. So, Russian. Oh my gosh, I love to see when a student has taken Russian in high school, but it's very uncommon for Russian to be taught within a public or a private high school. There are some public magnet high schools in New York City that offer Russian. I know Staten Island Technical students, I think it's the only language offered if I'm not mistaken, or it's required for graduation, so I'm a big fan of it. You don't have to prove proficiency. If you take Russian through your high school, it's going to be the level that you achieve and also how high up you go in Russian and also your grades. But there are going to be some students who speak Russian at home, and so they can indicate on the biographical section of the application that they speak Russian and English and possibly another language. But you don't have to take an outside proficiency exam to prove that you are proficient. But I think you want to have some evidence to back it up. So either courses and grades on your transcript, or that you speak it at home because maybe you are first or second generation Russian American and your parents speak it at home, or something on your activities list that will provide evidence to back up that proficiency. So something where you are speaking Russian, or you did an intensive Russian language program, for example, or you're a part of a group within your community. All of that is going to be just as important as taking an outside exam. Next question. Do colleges look hard at midterm grades after applications are submitted? Do they wait until after midterms to accept students? So most selective colleges will require first semester grades, especially if the student has a regular decision application. It really is going to vary from high school to high school when those first semester grades are available to colleges. If you go to high school in Arizona, you start high school, the school year in August. So first semester grades are, available a lot sooner than if you go to high school, let's say in the Northeast, for example. But most first semester grades need to be submitted to colleges by end of January, beginning of February at the latest. And they do absolutely matter, especially for a college that is selective in nature, that has seen a big increase in applications. They will use those mid-year grades as a point to figure out whether or not the student is academically a match. And so there are some students that think that the courses that they take senior year, the grades that they take senior year are not going to be important, but they really, really do matter, and they can make a big difference either way. All right, next question. If we didn't pick early action or early decision, what is the typical time frame to hear back with acceptance letters? Okay, if you apply rolling admissions, ideally you're hearing from a college in about 2 to 4 weeks. If you apply to just regular decision programs, you will sometimes hear as early as February, the end of February, but almost always it's sometime in March. And I would say April 1st is usually the latest. So early spring is when most of those remaining programs at colleges and universities are going to be releasing decisions. And students have until May 1st to make a decision unless they were accepted to an early decision program. So really admissions decisions can begin as early as August for a college that has rolling admissions, and can last really until the first couple days of April. You will find those colleges that are releasing decisions the end of March and the very beginning of April tend to be those highly selective colleges. There are a few exceptions. I know MIT likes to release their regular decision results on Pi Day in March. I can't remember the exact date, but someone will. So that's the time frame when acceptances can come out. And I was just sharing this with our Application Nation Class of 2022 group. Sometimes the college will actually indicate when they're going to be releasing decisions right on their admissions website. If not, you can check your admissions portal. Sometimes they will notify you as well. Oh, that's Pi Day. Yeah. What is the actual day?
3/14.
Oh, that's right. March 14th is Pi Day. Thank you. All right, next question. Hey, Jen. Oh, thank you, Jen. Yes, March 14th. I knew it was mid-March, but I didn't know the exact date. All right. I heard you say previously that merit money at similar caliber schools can be negotiated. How do you go about doing that with your admissions officer? Thank you so much. Okay, great question. So when you start getting acceptances and merit awards, and sometimes they happen at the same time, sometimes you will find out about a merit scholarship weeks or even months after you get accepted. It depends on the college or university. I would recommend waiting to get all of your acceptances and all of your merit scholarships in hand before you start negotiating or leveraging those awards. What I will tell you is that not a lot of colleges want to say that they will negotiate a merit award or a financial aid award, but a lot of them will do that. You are in a better position when you are providing them with a copy of the actual offer that you received from another college or university that college that you're trying to get more money from, for example, sees as a competitor. And they have to have similar philosophies in terms of admissions and also in terms of merit awards and financial aid. So for example, you can't show an Ivy League school a merit scholarship award from your local state university because the Ivy League institutions don't offer any merit scholarships, so they can't do anything about that. But if you're almost comparing or close to it, apples to apples, two colleges or two universities that have very similar policies, and one gave the student more money than the other, yes, you can use that as leverage. You're going to be reaching out sometimes to your admissions officer first because usually they have more to do with merit, and the financial aid office if it has more to do with a need-based financial aid package. But if you have your best offers in hand, you can use that as leverage. Someone in our Application Nation group, class of 2022, asked today, can we start doing that? Can we start negotiating? And I said to the parent, you know what, make sure you hear back from all your schools, number one, and also the closer you get to May 1st, the more leverage you have and the more power you have with a college or university, because if they feel the pressure and they are behind on enrollment deposits, for example, they might be more willing to give you more money. All right, next question. How do you think the increase in admissions will affect less competitive students? Fee waivers seem to encourage students to put in more applications, so less competitive schools, I assume, will become more competitive. Will wait lists become longer? So yes, we have to be aware of the fact that some, not all colleges and universities have seen increases in their application totals this last year, and I'm anticipating this year. But I think we sometimes just focus on those colleges that are seeing the big application increases. There are a lot of colleges and universities that are not in that position. But if you have colleges on your list that are hugely popular, you have to almost anticipate that they are going to get more and more competitive every single year. It means even more of a reason to have a well-balanced list, meaning reach, target, and likely colleges in equal number in each group. You want to make sure that you are applying to some early programs, rolling admissions, early action, possibly even early decision, because at least, even if you're not admitted, you're going to get a sense of how competitive you are in a pool. But I anticipate, at least at these popular colleges and universities, it's only going to get tougher and tougher. Now, if a college has an early action or early decision program, and they're seeing a big application increase in their early round, you almost have to anticipate that they're going to be deferring a lot of students. There is an exception. I think Vanderbilt does not defer any students, or they haven't in the past, but most institutions will defer a lot of those students who apply in their early round to regular decision. A lot of these colleges and universities are also going to have very long wait lists. There's no cap, so some big universities will have thousands of students on a wait list, and it's hard to know how competitive you are on a wait list. What I will tell you is look at public information like the Common Data Set. And you can go back and look at the last 5 to 10 years on a college and see, as long as they report it, how many students were on their wait list and how many students were admitted off the wait list. Every year is going to be different, and a college's yield could be different every single year, but you will start to get a feel for how long these wait lists are and if anybody has a shot of getting admitted off of them. Next question, is it necessary to take foreign language for all 4 years of high school? Ideally, yes, and that doesn't mean starting in 7th grade and getting your 4 years done by the end of 10th grade. Ideally, you are taking foreign language 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Foreign language is considered a core academic class for all colleges and universities. So no matter what major or program you're going to be applying to, having all 5 core subjects for all 4 years of high school is always a good idea to keep in mind. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but that should be your goal. I came up with a term called the 5-4 plan. It's just the title that I put on it, because I know after being an admissions officer, an associate dean, and a dean of admissions that taking your 5 core classes over your all 4 years of high school is really important. So your 5 core classes would be English, math, science, history or social studies, and foreign language. Sometimes there are going to be scheduling conflicts, and if that's the case, I just encourage the college counselor to mention that in the letter of recommendation, or for the student to list it somewhere on their application that they're not able to take a class because of a scheduling issue. But ideally, yes, taking foreign language through senior year is going to position the student best. But there are going to be plenty of students who get in that finish foreign language in junior year, and there are even going to be some students that stop taking foreign language at the end of 10th grade, but it would be very, very unusual to get admitted to a college with only foreign language through 9th grade. Next question, what disadvantages does a test optional student have when applying to schools? So if a college has a full-fledged test optional policy, the student is not going to be at a disadvantage if they don't submit test scores, as long as everything else in their application meets the standards, and usually high standards, of that college or university. So it's really important, if a student isn't submitting test scores, that they look at all the different pieces of the application and they're honest with themselves about whether or not they're going to be competitive. So if a student has taken the most challenging curriculum in all 5 core classes for all 4 years, and they're getting A's and they're at the top of their class, and they have wonderful extracurricular activities showing leadership or impact, and their essays are beautifully written and their recommendation letters are amazing, that student is going to be competitive for that college with or without those test scores. What we saw this past year is that students were not at a disadvantage at almost every single college or university out there if they didn't submit scores. I don't know the exact numbers, but I can tell you that Georgetown did not follow suit. And so I remember seeing an acceptance rate or a percentage where it was clear that they were giving students who submitted test scores a clear advantage in the admissions process. But that's not going to be the case at most test optional colleges and universities. Next question. With more number of mandatory APs, the weighted GPA is lower than the unweighted GPA. Does that matter? How does it impact the college admissions process? So let me just look at this question again so I make sure I get it. So some things to keep in mind. You want to find out from your college counselor or even the registrar at your high school what your official transcript looks like. Because sometimes high schools will list every marking period grade, sometimes every semester, every final grade. Sometimes they will have a weighted GPA, sometimes an unweighted GPA, sometimes no GPA. And there are still some high schools in this country that still rank their students. Almost always, if a high school ranks its students, it is a weighted class rank. So the student who gets straight A's but isn't taking any challenging courses is not going to be ranked as high as a student who's taking the most challenging curriculum and getting strong grades, but maybe not perfect grades. So you want to find out what's listed on your transcript. But almost always a weighted GPA is going to make the student look stronger as long as they are taking more challenging classes. How does that impact the admissions process? The truth of the matter is that at most highly selective colleges, they are deconstructing your transcript. So instead of looking at a weighted GPA and just taking it at face value, they're deconstructing it. So they are counting up the number of advanced level classes that you've taken, how many honors classes, how many AP classes, how many IB classes if that's offered, and they're looking at the grades that you're getting in those core academic subjects, and they're looking at them side by side instead of conflating them together. So it means that when you're applying to highly selected colleges, the rigor of your classes and the grades that you get matter equally, and they're looked at side by side, 50-50. So if you are hoping to apply to more selective colleges, it's really important to take those challenging classes if you can handle it. But you've got to make sure that it's not too hard and too challenging for you. I would say that if the student is struggling to get a B or a B minus in a class, that's usually a sign that it might be a good idea to go into a different level of that class. Instead of AP, maybe go to the honors class, or if it's an honors class, maybe go to the college prep class. But having a strong weighted GPA can look really spectacular, but the admissions officers are trained to really look at each individual grade that you get in each academic core subject, and many highly selective colleges will recalculate your GPA using just the core academic classes, just getting the grade that you got in the class, and then looking at the rigor of the curriculum side by side. All right, next question. Have you heard about the Boy Scout Distinguished Conservation Award? That one is equivalent to 2 Eagle Scout conservation-related projects in addition to earning a bunch of STEM-related merit badges. Do you recommend pursuing them for students interested in STEM? Is it worth the effort? So here's the thing. I love the Boy Scouts. I love the Girl Scouts. I was a Brownie for several years, but then I quit, like most students do. So when I think of the highest achievement, I know that there are other options out there, but most of the time, most admissions officers think like me. The Gold Award is kind of that precious gem that you get if you stick with Girl Scouts. The Eagle Scout is that really high award, and I know that there are other ones beyond that. I'm not familiar with that exact award. So what that tells me is there's probably other admissions officers that aren't aware of it. So I'm comfortable and supportive of the student pursuing that extra award. You just want to make sure that it's explained clearly on your activities list or on your honors list. So a little information can go a long way. So you can say exactly what you said to help me contextualize what that meant. It's like earning 2 Eagle Scouts. Make sure that's included in the description, and then admissions officers will absolutely know how hard it is to get to that level in Boy Scouts. And by the way, me and every single admissions officer out there on the planet, we love those Gold Awards and those Eagle Scout students. It takes a huge commitment to stick with it and do the project. And I often will tell my students who are thinking about what to do their Gold Award project or their Eagle Scout project on, I tell them if you have an academic interest, you might want to think about how your project aligns with your academic interest, because that project that you do for Eagle Scout or Gold Award can actually provide evidence to back up the major that you're listing on your application. So keep that in mind. Next question, do any high-level colleges require both the SAT and the ACT results? No, they only ask for one or the other, and they have absolutely no preference. So that's why I tell students take the test that they think they're gonna do their best on. If your student does well the first SAT, better to concentrate on improving that score instead of introducing another test. I tend to agree, as long as the student is confident that they chose the right test from the beginning. So just to give you an example, I have a high school sophomore. Once sophomore year is done, I'm going to encourage her to take a full-length practice SAT and a full-length practice SAT, and we will look at those scores and also get a feel for which one she preferred over the other. Sometimes the scores are very consistent, but ultimately you want to go with the test that you think you have the most potential to score higher on. Keep in mind that there are going to be more colleges that super score the SAT than super score the ACT, so the SAT can benefit you in that way. You could take one test, do really well on one section, take it a second time and do the reverse, and you've got your super score. Whereas the ACT, not all colleges will super score the 4 sections of the ACT. You just have to go on a college's admissions website and find out. Can you talk about the differences between deferred and waitlisted and chances of being admitted for each? Great question. Okay, so being deferred is a outcome that happens when a student applies early decision or early action. When a student applies early decision or early action and gets deferred, it means that their application is going to be reevaluated within the regular decision applicant pool. And it basically means that the college is deferring their final decision until later. And so I give students a lot of steps in my application nation groups about what to do to strengthen their application so that they can be more competitive in regular decision. Waitlist, that outcome usually happens in regular decision or if the college only has one deadline. For example, the University of Southern California doesn't have an early round of admission, and everybody's put in the same pool unless you're applying for merit scholarships. So they don't have a defer process, but they do have a wait list option. What are your chances? I think it depends on the college. I think it depends on the university. I will say that colleges and universities are doing a ton of both. Just to give you an example, I can't believe Harvard even admitted to this. They don't provide a whole lot of data usually about their admission statistics, but last year, so that first full early round with the pandemic, they deferred 80% of their restrictive early action program to regular decision. So you can see that sometimes it's almost an easier decision for a college to make to defer the student because they're not sure what to do. But getting admitted in regular decision for any student can be really challenging because the regular decision acceptance rate is almost always lower than the acceptance rate during the early round. So again, there are things that can strengthen a student's application after they've been deferred, but there are going to be a lot of students in that same boat, so you want to keep that in mind. Waitlists can be thousands of students long, but it really is going to depend on yield for that college or university that year. Yield is the percentage of students who accept the offer of admission and end up enrolling. And if the yield is not consistent, or it's unpredictable and the college or university didn't get as many enrollment deposits as they expected, they would then go to the wait list. And again, the wait list, for some colleges, they use the wait list very strategically and intentionally and aggressively, and other colleges and universities haven't been able to use the wait list in the last couple of years. It really just depends on the college or university that year and how their yield is doing. One thing that I think surprised a lot of us in college admissions and the college counseling world this past year is that there weren't a lot of colleges and universities using the wait list this past spring. So that was a big surprise. I think a lot of us thought that yield would be a lot more unpredictable, but in many ways, yield was incredibly high at those high-profile popular colleges and universities. All right, one more question. If we know we probably won't qualify for financial aid, but going for merit aid, do we still need to fill out the FAFSA? So it's always good to fill out the FAFSA. You never know when your financial situation will change. There are some colleges and universities that require the FAFSA. even if you want to be considered for merit aid. And there are also a handful of colleges, I can't believe they get away with this. I mean, where is our government going after them? But some of these colleges and universities will say to a student that if you don't fill out and submit the FAFSA when you're a high school senior applying to college and something changes, we will not give you financial aid. So it's not a bad idea to fill out the FAFSA and submit it, even if you know you're not going to qualify for need-based financial aid. On that note, it was really good to see you all. I hope that this has been helpful. If you like to get your questions answered immediately, if you want my insights, I would encourage you to look into Application Nation. The class of 2023 will be launching in January. If you join the waitlist now, you get 20% off your first month of membership. If you want to get a sense of where students in Application Nation get into, definitely follow my Instagram account because I post all of the acceptances on my story. That's at Sara Harberson. So all different types of colleges in the US and abroad, all different types of students. So I hope you will join me back here again for Facebook Live in January, or maybe even join Application Nation. See you all soon. Take care. Happy holidays.